This past weekend in college football was awesome. It was college football week 7. There were 3 amazing games and then more notable ones we'll talk about. But game number 1 was this. Tennessee beat Alabama. They knocked off Alabama. Alabama is now 6-1. And Tennessee remains undefeated at 6-0. This was not only a massive win, but also an incredible game. Tennessee won 52-49. Got a last-second field goal. The game was back and forth all game long. Like, Bama scored, Tennessee scored. It was just like a kind of a perfect game. It's exactly what I want. High-scoring, dramatic, a great finish, beautiful. Like, entertaining the entire way through. Every moment was tense and full of just roller coaster emotions. And Bama missed a 50-yard field goal with 15 seconds left in the game. And then Hendon Hooker and Tennessee made a crazy thing. Tennessee had the ball on their own 32-yard line, 1st and 10 with 15 seconds left, and they had 2 plays. They threw an 18-yard pass and a 27-yard pass and then kicked a 40-yard field goal as time expired for the win. It was crazy. It was Patrick Mahomes-esque, where you're like, bang, bang, field goal, game over. And you're like, did that really happen? Oh my gosh, Tennessee beat Alabama! And they walked away with the goalposts, and it was chaos, man. I was so happy for Tennessee. The game was in Tennessee at Neyland Stadium. Maybe I want to go to Tennessee someday. I've never been there. I'm sure it's awesome and really cool to see them win. It was just wild, man. Now, Bryce Young, Alabama's quarterback, played pretty well despite losing. He threw for 455 yards, had 0 turnovers. Alabama's running back, Jahmyr Gibbs, was he's just incredible, man. He had 24 carries for 103 yards, 3 touchdowns. He also had 48 yards receiving. So Jahmyr Gibbs is a stud. Bryce Young is incredible, probably going to be the first quarterback drafted. But the standout star of this football game is Tennessee receiver Jalen Hyatt. He had 6 catches. Listen to this again. Jalen Hyatt, against Alabama, had 6 catches for 207 yards, 5 touchdown catches. All but one of his catches was a touchdown. Are you kidding me? Ridiculous. He had an incredible game. Hendon Hooker, Tennessee's quarterback, 21 for 30 passing, 385 yards, 5 touchdown passes, all of them to Jalen Hyatt. Had 1 interception on a ball that went high over his receiver's head. It was Hendon Hooker's first and only interception of the year so far. Tennessee beat Alabama for the first time in 15 years. I can only imagine, if you're a Tennessee fan, think about this. There are people that are Tennessee fans that are alive that have never seen their team beat Alabama until this moment. If you're like 13 years old, you never saw it. You're watching with your dad, and every year is misery and pain. And you're like, why does my team lose to Bama every year? I'm so traumatized. Well, things have changed. And I just can't imagine how frustrating that must have been. 15 years of losing to Alabama. And not only losing, but them then winning like a national championship what must have felt like every year. The hatred that must have festered between Tennessee and Alabama must have been real. And now you walk away. Tennessee and Georgia are both undefeated. And both teams, Tennessee and Georgia, are in the SEC East, which means that only one of them can go to the SEC title game. You've got in the East, Tennessee and Georgia. In the West, Ole Miss and Alabama. Tennessee plays at Georgia on November 5th. And Georgia is the favorite, but Tennessee clearly has a shot. Now, I want to add this bit of commentary. I didn't think Tennessee was going to beat Alabama. Not before the game, but during the game. Like, during the game, I remember, Hendon Hooker threw his first ever interception all year. And there were 2 plays where Hendon Hooker had receivers open, deep downfield, and missed. There was a 4th and 6 in the second quarter. Had a touchdown, had to be a perfect throw, but he missed it, and there was no touchdown. That felt like a big deal. And then in the third quarter, on a 2nd and 13, he missed a receiver open deep. To have an interception and then 2 inaccurate throws that should have been probably touchdowns, if not massive gains, missed, felt like a thing that Tennessee couldn't be forgiven for. I can't believe they won in spite of that. And I would say that theoretically that means Tennessee could have won by 2 more touchdowns. So it might not have even needed the drama it did. So I'm surprised that Tennessee missed on 2 opportunities and had a pick and still found a way to win this game. Like, Alabama left a lot of room, a lot of margin for error there by Tennessee. And can you imagine if Hendon Hooker threw 7 touchdowns against Alabama? That might have been what happened if he hits on those 2 throws. So, I don't know, man. I was so happy for Tennessee. Great for them. The stadium atmosphere was insane. By the way, Alabama had 17 penalties in this football game. The most ever penalties in the Nick Saban era actually was against Texas earlier this year. They had 15. They blew that out of the water. Alabama had 17 penalties against Tennessee in this game. That's the second time they've broke the record this year, and penalties are such an easy thing to point to that are very costly. Having 17 penalties, giving up 130 yards on 17 penalties, that's insane, and it's a big reason why Alabama is now a one-loss football team. Okay, in no particular order, there are 2 more games that I found incredible during college football week 7. Game number 2, Oklahoma State at TCU. The game was in Fort Worth. TCU won. This game was wild. Oklahoma led 30-16 in the fourth quarter. And I thought for sure, man, Oklahoma State had all the momentum. I thought they were going to win this football game. TCU came back, and TCU tied the game 30-30. Then TCU won in double overtime, 43-40. And it was such a fun game. I thought that, man, one of the biggest standouts in this game, actually, it's a weird thing to like get hung up on, but my all-time favorite jersey is that TCU jersey they wore to win this game. The gray with the purple helmets, the red numbers. That's the best jersey in all, best uniform combination in all of football at any level. I love that uniform. This is why you watch Big 12 football, man. It's for games like this that go down to the wire. A lot of offense, a lot of scoring, double overtime. Oklahoma State is now 5-1. TCU is now still undefeated, 6-0. And if the Big 12 is going to get anyone in the college football playoff, it is now going to have to be TCU. And I think that's worthy. I like watching TCU. They're really fun. I've watched them 2 great games in a row now. First at Kansas, and they're now winning over Oklahoma State. And this is an exciting team to watch. I really enjoy watching TCU. Game number 3, Utah beat USC, and I absolutely loved how this game ended. The mighty USC got beaten, and it came down to 4th and goal from the 1-yard line. 48 seconds left. Utah had the ball, down a touchdown. Not only did Utah score a touchdown with 48 seconds left on 4th and goal from the 1-yard line, Utah made it 41-42, and then USC still led by 1 point. So what did Utah decide to do? Utah went for a 2-point conversion. They're like, hey, let's end the game here. I love that decision because I would not want to go to overtime against USC with Caleb Williams. I'd be like, look, our offense has to keep up with their offense when everyone gets an equal opportunity. Let's just end the game here because they got a great quarterback, a Heisman Trophy candidate, a high-powered offense. I really admired the decision to go for it there. And I've talked about this before. In the NFL, there have been a couple moments where teams have gone for it for the 2-point conversion at the end to avoid overtime. And I think it's so frequently the right move because if you're playing against a juggernaut, a really good football team, especially a high-powered offense with a great quarterback, high-powered offenses with great quarterbacks win in overtime almost every time. If you can avoid overtime against that, you do it. And that's what Utah did. They went for 2. It was ballsy. It won them the game. I love that so much, man. USC, the Trojans are now 6-1. The only undefeated team left in the Pac-12 is UCLA. And the Pac-12's hopes of making the college football playoff now are basically over. Every year the Pac-12 beats up on itself, and it's very entertaining. It's very fun. There's no dominant team in the Pac-12, not really. So nationally, they get hurt. But I hope it's clear, like, Pac-12 football is a lot of fun to watch. It really is just a great product every year. You don't have as many NFL stars, the future NFL players like you do in the SEC. And the level of passion from the fan base just isn't as much. But, man, it's a lot of fun. I really thought that maybe this year USC was going to be the dominant team in the Pac-12, and nope, apparently not. They gave up 43 points to Utah, and they lost. Again, that moment, going for 2, Utah, that's an incredible moment. One of my favorite moments of the year in any level of football, and I just, tip of the cap, it was awesome. By the way, shout out to Utah tight end Dalton Kincaid. The dude dominated. This is Dalton Kincaid's stat line from that game against Utah. 16 catches. Your tight end had 16 catches against USC. 234 yards and a touchdown. That's George Kittle, Travis Kelce type numbers, man. 16 catches, 234 yards from a tight end for a touchdown. Again, I just tip my cap to Utah. What an awesome performance. Gutsy call at the end. And very, very entertaining. That is why I watch football right there. For moments like that, fourth and goal, on the 1 yard line, 48 seconds left to score a touchdown. You could have tied the game, but instead they go for 2 to avoid overtime against a high-powered USC offense. Like, let's end it here. They did. They won. Chef's kiss. That is beautiful. Here are some other notable games from college football week 7. Michigan beat Penn State 41-17. It was close for a moment. There was a moment early in the second quarter where Penn State led actually 14-13. In the end, Michigan dominated there. Still undefeated 7-0. Penn State is now 5-1. Clemson beat Florida State 34-28. It sounds worse than it is. Clemson actually was up 34-21. Then Florida State got a touchdown with 2 minutes left in the game. Clemson, they're 7-0. Feel like they're on a path to the college football playoff pretty easily. Ole Miss is still undefeated. Ole Miss beat Auburn 48-34. Dude, Ole Miss against Auburn. Ole Miss ran for 448 yards. They had multiple backs, like 3 of them, with over 100 yards rushing. That's ridiculous. To run for 448 yards is crazy. Jackson Dart, their quarterback, only completed 9 passes. That's all he really needed to do in this game. Jackson Dart, 9 completions for 3 touchdowns. What? And they ran for 448 yards? Crazy to me. Like, that's Ole Miss. They play Alabama pretty soon. That's going to be very interesting. Syracuse is still undefeated. They beat NC State 24-9. NC State quarterback Devin Leary did not play. It's hard. Like, I know Syracuse is 6-0, but I don't really respect the schedule they've had so far. They do play at Clemson this next weekend. That's an opportunity to gain my respect. I think Clemson wins that game. But still, Syracuse, they're 6-0. They're bowl eligible. Good for them. That's very exciting. It's worth noting LSU beat Florida 45-35. Kentucky also won again. They're back on track after losing 2 games in a row. Will Levis is back. They beat Mississippi State 27-17. Here are the top 12 teams in college football, according to the Associated Press, after this past weekend. The number 1 team in college football is 7-0 Georgia. Number 2 is Ohio State. Not a shock. They are 6-0. Tennessee, after beating Alabama, they are 6-0. They are the number 3 team in college football. Number 4 is Michigan at 7-0. So that's 2 SEC teams and 2 Big Ten teams in the top 4 right now in college football. Number 5 is Clemson at 7-0. Number 6 is Alabama at 6-1 after the loss to Tennessee. Ole Miss, they're 7-0. They are the number 7 team in college football. They play Alabama, I think, in 2 weeks. It's coming up pretty soon. I know it's like one of the next couple games, and it's going to be very interesting. Number 8 right now is TCU at 6-0. They are the Big 12's only hope of making the college football playoff. Number 9 is 6-0 UCLA. They are the Pac-12's only hope of making the college football playoff. We'll see. TCU and UCLA, they have a long road ahead if they want to make it in. And I think one of them might even lose out to a 1-loss Alabama team, but we'll see. The number 10 team in college football is Oregon. They're 5-1. Their only loss is to Georgia, who's the number 1 team in the nation. That's why Oregon has 1 loss, but they're still the number 10 team in the country because their only loss is to a dominant Georgia football team. Oklahoma State, after losing to TCU, they're 5-1. They are the 11 team in the country, and USC has fallen all the way to the number 12 team in the country after losing to Utah. It's worth noting, undefeated Syracuse is the 14th team in the country. I think that's going to end when they play Clemson this next weekend. It was just a joy to watch college football this past weekend. Incredible moments. Tennessee beat Alabama. Utah going for 2. Beating USC at the end of the game was just my favorite moment of college football so far. Maybe one of my favorite moments of the entire football season so far. And then that TCU-Oklahoma State game, going to double overtime. TCU came back in the fourth quarter. This college football week 7 was incredible, and I loved it. And I'm really excited for this next weekend. And I just, keep enjoying college football because the product right now is absolutely incredible.